Hello and welcome to HitMic, where we love talking about the latest strategies, news, and insights from the world of healthcare marketing. I'm Colin Hung, and I'm sitting down today with Sarah Strom, VP of Marketing at Panda Health, a company that makes it faster and easier for healthcare organizations to find and adopt industry-leading digital health solutions. Sarah is the 2022 winner of the Marketer of the Year. Sarah, welcome to the program and congratulations again on winning the award.
Thank you so much. I'm proud to be here. I'm glad to be here. I'm honored, and I'm glad to be a member of the HitMic community. It's been a huge part of my career.
And we love that you're part of that community. But before we dive into some of the discussion points that we're going to talk about today, I want our audience to get to know you a little bit better. So let me ask you this question right off the start. Why healthcare marketing? What excites you about being in this industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a little bit of background, I've been in the tech industry my whole career. Health tech has been the last 6 or so years of my career. And I stumbled into technology. Literally my first job out of college was at a Salesforce consultancy and really was lucky to have stumbled into that job. But never knew I would be in tech, more or less health tech. But going back to my college days and my sort of personal interests, I actually thought I was going to be pre-med or go into nursing. I've always had a passion for helping people, and I was fascinated by my high school human anatomy classes and just helping people, and healthcare seemed like the right place to do that. And I took my first biology class in college and just suffered through it. I'm just not a science math person. I'm totally an arts, writing, English, communication. So I went a completely different direction with my major, and always in the back of my head kind of wondered if I would have the opportunity to get into healthcare, and got really lucky, 6 or so years ago in working for a healthcare technology company. And it felt at that point like my whole career had kind of come full circle. I was really able to use my communication, my marketing, my media interests, and marry that up with the interests of healthcare. And I think the company that I worked for was a clinical surveillance company, the first healthcare company that I entered into. And it was the most rewarding thing to show up to work every day and not be a clinician. I've never worked in a healthcare system, but know that my marketing job was 6 or 7 steps away from our software, literally saving people's lives. And so when you come to work in healthcare every day, you can feel the impact that you're having on humans, even as a marketer. And so I'm not a surgeon, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, and all of those careers are so amazing and well respected, but I'm steps away from impacting people's lives in that way. So
it is nice when you were able to work in an industry where it's not just about a bottom line, right? Where the work you're doing is bringing a needed technology or a needed solution to help either a clinician or a patient or both. So totally I get that and understand that. So let's talk a little bit about some of the marketing tactics. I want to get your opinion on a few of them. And top of mind for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people listening and watching this, is webinars, right? It was sort of a known tactic. People used it, but I would say probably sparsely before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, we just saw a huge explosion of people doing webinars and online events. In your opinion, Sarah, are webinars still a good way for healthcare IT companies in the B2B space to really use as a marketing tactic?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, due to the pandemic, webinars were kind of like this necessary evil almost. It was like that was the only way that we could communicate to people during that time. And so it expanded so much that my personal opinion is that people are kind of webinared out right now. We still do webinars at Panda, but I think, one exercise that we've recently done is really running more of an ROI analysis on the effort that goes into a webinar and the output that comes out of it in terms of leads or conversions or meetings or what have you. And I think there's still a time and place for webinars. I think it really just comes down to shifting the strategy a bit and also thinking about other tactics outside of webinars. So we can talk a little bit about that too. But when it comes to webinars, I think you need to think of it as more than just a 60-minute sales pitch. Like, you need to have something that you're offering to your audience that's of value to them, because people will still come to webinars if there's something really valuable in it for them. Webinars aren't dead, I will never say that, but they've definitely fizzled in the standpoint that people are webinared out. And so I think, you know, some of the tactics that we've been experimenting with at Panda, and certainly what I'm seeing in the industry, is offering shorter webinars. So things like 10-minute sessions, 15-minute sessions, maybe 30-minute sessions, definitely moving away from the full 60-minute webinars, because nobody has time for that. And nobody also is going to go back and watch 60 minutes of on-demand webinar content. It's just not realistic. Now, there's one thing, on the other hand, if you want to produce a 60-minute webinar and chop it up into little bite-sized pieces, or produce a 30-minute webinar and also publish it on your podcast, and you think about other media or mediums that may be more likely for people to latch onto and listen in on. But looking at your traditional, like 45-minute or 60-minute slide-heavy webinar is just not where it's at these days. So I think marketers need to get more creative about their webinar approaches. And even something as silly as, don't call it a webinar. Can you call it a virtual event, and do something with that virtual event to make it more exciting than just a webinar, right? Like, at the end of the day, a virtual event is basically a webinar, but are there other ways you can engage with attendees through, you know, survey tools, or through sending them something in advance, you know, direct mail in advance of your virtual event or webinar to really get them engaged? I just think marketers really need to think outside the box when it comes to virtual events and webinars nowadays.
I love some of the tactics you're mentioning here, like shortening the webinar down to 30 minutes, chunking up the webinar after you've recorded it into smaller bite-sized pieces, reusing it on different platforms like a podcast. That is excellent tactics for eking more value out of a webinar, because I totally agree with you. I think certainly I feel that the audiences are kind of bored of webinars. Like, they've got, you know, they've been there, done that. They're all taking a break. So you got to get that much more creative with webinars. But I'm glad to hear that you don't think they're dead.
I don't think they're dead, but I think, you know, we need to also think about what other channels are we using aside from webinars. And so, you know, some things that we've been leaning into at Panda, or things that we've been exploring, are podcasts. I mentioned that, you know, even if you're recording a webinar and repurposing that audio into a podcast format, that could be a good way, but also just being guests on other people's podcasts. I think we are in a very much podcast era where people will multitask, either while they're working from home on something more mindless, or while they're doing laundry or taking the dogs for a walk. Like, podcasts are just such a great way to ingest information a little bit passively, but still retain it. We've been investing in short form video. And so, you know, I'd mentioned, even with a webinar, if you record it, can you chop it up into little bite-sized pieces? I see, you know, a good amount of this through thought leaders that I follow on LinkedIn, but if you can post a 30-second clip of something, or even a 1-minute clip of something, that's going to be way more attractive to your audience than a 8-minute clip. Like, literally nobody is going on social media right now to watch an 8-minute video. They're just not. And I think with the short form video, something for marketers to really consider is scrappy, informal, relatively low production quality. Like, we live in this era where you and I are hopping on Zoom and we're recording a video right now, and you don't need to pay a video production crew $50,000 to produce a commercial quality video anymore. And I actually think people like the authenticity of a scrappier video, because it's real people, and it's real life, and we're all working from home and have this sort of informal video capability. The other thing I'll mention there is just that there's a big trend right now in the fact that, like, TikTok is becoming the most used search engine, like surpassing Google. And even personally, I will use Instagram as a search engine for certain things. And you think about that short form video and how people really want to receive information nowadays. And it's just not through a 60-minute webinar. So we're exploring some things like that, short form video, podcasts, lots of other things beyond that. But I think when it comes to content, those are things that work really well outside of webinars.
Is there, because one of the best things about webinars was that you got people to sign up, right? You got the registration and the email information. Podcasts are great, but you can't get the same data. I mean, you get the listens, you get that, but unless they've downloaded or listened in the past, it's not really a great lead gen tool, at least classically.
Yeah.
Are there any sort of webinar replacements that have been effective for you in terms of generating those form fills?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I go back to my roots with this answer, and my roots really are in event planning, period. So I'm a marketer and I do, every type of marketing that you could imagine, but my career, I've spent a lot of time in event planning, and whether that's trade shows, user group events, virtual events, happy hours. I think, thankfully we are through what seems to be the worst of the pandemic. And I find myself recommending to our team and really leaning into in-person events again. I really think that that's critical. I think it's tricky to generate other sort of digital ways like webinars to generate leads. Like webinars, like I said, they're not dead, but they're just trickier to get leads from nowadays. And I personally find so much value in just connecting with people in person. So that's what I am recommending right now is, doesn't need to necessarily be in person. Even if it is a virtual event, you could offer something like a big giveaway in relation to that virtual event. And people could fill out a lead form to be entered to win a $500 Amazon gift card or something like that, as long as you're offering them something of value. But yeah, I just go back to that in-person thing. I think moving slightly away from webinars and just getting back to the basics of human connection. Like I think of, when I saw you at Vive and Vive was kind of like it was like the coming out party, getting back into events, because we had all been cooped up for so long, and it just felt really good to be in person with people. So I think that's super important.
I like where you're going with this, because I think if you're burnt out over webinars, then in person is it's like the re-energizing, right?
Yeah.
I can connect with people in person again. So that's wonderful. Sarah, let me ask this question of you. Where do you get inspiration from? Like, where do you get new marketing ideas? Because you're one of the more creative people that I know. And where do you go and get some of these ideas that you have?
Well, thank you for calling me creative. That's very kind. I definitely don't do it on my own. I have been a team of one in my role at Panda for a while, but I'm really excited that our team is growing. But I definitely rely on my team. We source ideas together. My team right now consists of full-time employees, as well as some amazing contractors and agency team members that I look to for inspiration. The HIPMIC community itself has been a massive source of inspiration for me. All of the resources that you guys are putting together, whether it's your newsletter or the HIPMIC event, the group on LinkedIn where we can connect. It's just a really great way to source ideas from other like-minded healthcare marketers. And so I realize that most people seeing this might already be involved in the HIPMIC community, but I just have to make a plug for it. Like if you're watching this and you're not a member of HIPMIC and you do healthcare marketing, like you're seriously missing out on some really great mind share that's not in a competitive way. Like we're all just really willing to share tactics and ideas. And that's so valuable. The other thing that I really am paying a lot of attention to is B2B marketing leaders and communities that are outside of healthcare. Okay. So I think, there's a lot of healthcare marketing tactics that are unique and specific to healthcare, especially when you're thinking about marketing to clinicians, physicians, nurses, C-suite healthcare leaders. There's certain tactics and vocabulary and methods that you need to consider that are certainly different than B2C, or certainly different than even just other industries. But I will say, looking outside of the healthcare industry, I feel like a lot of the healthcare industry stuff can feel similar, or it can feel like it's not getting old, but you're just sort of seeing the same things. You're seeing the same ads. You're seeing the same things, like an ad on LinkedIn that's like, download our white paper. And I'm guilty of that too. Like we have white papers that people download, right? But thinking about how would a B2C company promote a new asset or material or product? How would they design that graphic? how would they market this to consumers? And it's still, you know, a B2B lens, but just thinking about it a little bit differently. So I'm a member of quite a few marketing communities, particularly ones that are run on Facebook,
Okay.
that are just communities of like-minded B2B marketers from all sorts of industries. And I'm going to put a plug in here for this one. It's called Exit 5. But it's a paid Facebook community led by Dave Gerhardt, who's the former chief marketing officer at Drift, which is a chatbot company. And that community has been a huge game changer in terms of my career. It's just a bunch of really creative, energetic marketers that are passionate about doing creative things, doing demand generation marketing, brand awareness. It's not just all about like, how can I get leads? It's how can I build this really authentic, trustworthy brand that will bring people to my brand when they have a need. So I've sourced a lot of ideas through that, and I'm really grateful for that as a resource as well.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'll definitely have to check that one out on Facebook.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Let's turn a little bit more tactical. Sarah, what have you learned from your last few marketing projects that you will now carry forward with you for a long time? Like, what are some of those lessons learned? What are some of those I won't say lifelong, but certainly indelible, that have made an indelible mark on you in terms of learnings from a marketing related project?
Yeah, great question. You know, I think back to a campaign that we just recently launched at Panda. We've been really excited to officially launch our product, which is our online digital health marketplace for health systems. And part of that product launch was sending communications to our customer base. I think about how that campaign and communication went, and I think back to so many other campaigns that I've run in the healthcare space, and a huge learning that I've had over the several years that I've been in healthcare marketing is that we cannot rely on email as a source to communicate important information. We need to consider it, and email should probably always be a part of your campaigns, but we can't rely on it as the sole source of communication. And I think there's varying reasons for that, including if you're using a tool like HubSpot, Pardot, Marketo, Eloqua, you know, other tools like that, it's easier to get stuck in your customers or prospects spam folders at health systems. So if you're listening to this and you're new to healthcare marketing, you may be experiencing struggles related to that, and it's certainly not new to me. Hospital spam filters are so much tighter than many other industries because they get the majority of spear phishing and phishing attacks. And so while we're able to successfully get through to people's inboxes, there are some where they're not. You know, they just have such strict firewalls that we can't get through. And so we always want to be thinking about multifaceted ways to communicate our most important messages. So thinking like, can our team of account managers also do some personalized email outreach from their corporate email address? Can our team do some phone calls? Can we be direct messaging people on LinkedIn? You know, I think back to a campaign that I ran at a previous company where we did a virtual user group event, and we used the phone as one of our most successful methods to get people to register, just calling people. And well, a lot of people didn't answer. You leave them a voicemail and they'll actually call you back. And it's sort of getting back to like the old school methods of marketing, where, you know, whether it's phone or whether it is like a LinkedIn DM, or maybe you have these people's text, you know, their phone numbers to text them. You just always need to be thinking about the fact that email can't be the end all be all communication method for really important things like a product launch, or like, you know, if you're trying to get people to register for an event. Think about how can you do things 4 different ways, basically. How can you sort of duplicate or replicate that communication through other media or mediums?
A true omni-channel approach. I love it.
Yes.
I love it. Final question for you before we get to the end. Sarah, what exciting projects or exciting aspects of marketing are you working on now at Panda? Is there a project you're looking forward to right now?
Yeah, we've got a lot of really fun things in the works. One of which I sort of already mentioned, but is our product launch. So just a couple of weeks ago, we officially launched our online marketplace, but we've got a couple of tiers of launches around that coming up. And so we did sort of a beta launch with our existing customer base, and we'll be gearing up in the next several months here for more of a market ready, market available launch for all health systems, to be able to some extent access the resources available on our marketplace. And so health systems can log in and gain access to competitive information, research, education, contract information, RFP, security reviews. We're kind of like an encyclopedia of information around digital health companies. And product launches are always fun because at the end of the day, it's a campaign, and you want to think about the multifaceted ways that you're going to communicate that launch. But you can also do some really fun, quirky, creative things with product launches, especially with a brand like Panda. We can do some fun stuff with our brand. But I've spent a big chunk of my career doing event planning. Like, that's kind of my bread and butter. And I haven't spent a huge portion doing product marketing or product launches. And while I have experience in it, it's really fun to be able to put my energy and time into something new and exciting like a product. So I'm really excited about that. I'm just excited for listeners and people in healthcare in general to see more of what Panda is up to in the next couple of months. And then I would say the other thing is just building out our marketing team. So I'm so excited to continue building out our team. We're experiencing really great growth right now. We're hiring for a role. We've hired a couple of roles recently. And so I'm really excited to be able to build this marketing culture within Panda and be able to idea share with others on my team. I've been a team of one for quite some time. So it's exciting to think about having a team of amazing rockstar people. So
it does sound like a lot of fun. Both projects, product launching and building a team, both are very exciting.
Thank you.
Sarah, where can people go to find out more information about Panda, and how might they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can visit panda.health to learn more about Panda. Again, we are a digital marketplace for health systems to look up and research and procure digital health companies. And I would love if you wanted to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I'd love to be a resource for you or connect with you there. So Sarah Strom on LinkedIn, and I'll accept your connection request.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing all this wonderful information. It's been great to have you on the program today.
Thanks so much, Colin. It's great to connect. And thank you again for the award. I am so appreciative of it and happy to be a part of this community.
Well, you absolutely deserved it in 2022. So for all the work you've done. So thank you for being part of the community.
Thanks,
and
Colin.
Hey, if you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you're listening and watching this. Also, head on over to hitmake.com, where you can access free articles, industry news, and insightful insights. You can also connect with us on Twitter using the hashtag #HITMC. I'm Colin Hong, along with Sarah Strom. Thanks for being here.